This video is going to stress the special augment ability transfer. This is a 202 class. There is a 201 class talking about this. But this video is going to stress the living shit out of this little mechanic. Why? Because it is really good. But you have to understand why this is good. There's an original intent to it, which is pretty much you moving augments and affixes from your old gear into new gear. So for example, if you have a 12-star unit that has a bunch of good abilities, you can easily transfer them from that 12-star onto a 13-star unit without having to redo all the things you had to do to make it. So you don't need to re-affix it again, re-augment it again. But there's a bit more to it, which is why I'm making this video once again. I already talked about it, but I'm going to stress it to the point where hopefully you guys can understand why this is a thing and use this to your advantage. But there's also some cons along with it. You have to. There's at least a couple videos you have to watch, but you need to understand what is an upslot penalty, the upslot concept. Why? Because when you push weapons and or units to an 8 slot, it's not easy. Sometimes you can get it as a natural drop, but will be times where you have to push to an 8 slot, and that is not easy, especially on a unit. Look in the upper right hand corner or in the description for any one of the videos talking about the upslot penalty, or at least showing it in game or through a simulator or some other means. Watch that, because that explains why this is so good later on. In all honesty, there's a lot more videos that you would need to watch, so you don't have to hear an explanation in this video. This video is trying to stress out the special augment ability transfer. Things you need to note, things you need to understand is something like the S-class special ability transfer, SSA transfer. You want to watch the video that I already have in the description. There's going to be more videos you need to watch so you understand some of the terminology and the things I'm going to be highlighting throughout this video. If you want to watch them, look in the description, watch those videos, get them out of the way. You'll hear me repeat this again, but it's to stress the importance of knowing this and how the special ability transfer just by itself can be really good. But you have to look at those videos. If you don't want to do that, then you might be lost and you might be utterly confused. Make sure to watch them so you understand what is going on in terms of this special ability transfer. Let's get started. So you find this process with Monica and Ordudu. The thing we're looking for is special ability transfer, special augment transfer. It is the third option. The fourth option deals with SSAs, the S-class special ability transfer. So if you are dealing with an SSA, you do this option. If you're dealing with anything that is not an SSA on your weapon and or unit, you are dealing with the special ability transfer. So when I click on this, this is what it's asking. Pretty much the first thing that I'm selecting is the new gear that I would want my previous augments and abilities to move to. So for demonstration's sake, we're going to move these abilities onto this 15 star. In all honesty, you don't want to do it because one, these abilities aren't as good together. Secondly, you can go for a bit better. So do I really want to do this? No, but for demonstration's sake, let's pretend that I want to move these 4 abilities onto this 15 star. So the first thing, once again, I'm selecting is the new gear. So I want this 15 star to get these abilities. I'm going to ignore whatever is on this 15 star. So I'm going to hit yes. The second thing I am selecting is the equipment that has my previous augments and affixes, or my finalized augments and affixes. So I'm going to select this Nox over here. It is a 4 slot. I'm going to do this and you can see that all those abilities can be moved over. It's going to go to slot 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty much whatever the slot number is for that 15 star. And once I do that, you see that this is open now. I can hit confirm and it will take you to another screen saying this will consume X amount of ability transfer passes and an X amount of setup. This is also warning you that you decide to do this, that 12-star Nox is now becoming a 0 slot. You can still keep the 12-star weapon, but the abilities are going to move over. Not only that, the abilities that were on the 15 stars are going to be deleted. And then if you want to confirm it, you can hit yes, and then you're good to go, and you got all these abilities on that 15 star. Once again, in actuality, no, you don't want to do that because this 15 star already has a good chunk of abilities, and you may not want to do that because it's giving a good, it's not as high, but it's giving a good chunk of at least PP, HP, and a good chunk of all-round stats compared to the Nox, where it's kind of roughly around the same thing, but it's yeah, no. Like, two of these abilities are kind of useless depending on whatever you're doing with this weapon. Anyways, ignoring the technical talk. That's the intent of this special ability augment transfer. However, it does not follow the same rules. So, and what do I mean by rules? It doesn't follow the same rules that you do with basic affixing 101. So usually when you add ability some things, you have to do it with the same number of abilities or higher. Well, guess what? You can actually do something really weird. For this example, we are selecting this 15 star again. It is at a 4 slot. I'm going to hit yes. The second piece is the material, or the thing that has a bunch of abilities. For this demonstration, we're going with this 14 star dim weapon that has 8 slots, 8 abilities. And you can see that we can select all 8 of these abilities. However, we are not able to transfer them properly. So if I want, I can choose like these, or I can do this sort of combination, this combination over here. The problem is it's stuck at 4. You can only select 4. The other 4 are going to disappear. Why? Because the 15 star is not at the same slot. So if it was at an 8 slot, we could technically transfer all 8 of these. But because it's at a low slot, we can't. However, as you can see, using this process allows you to move something that you originally cannot do with an add ability through the normal affix session. Because the big thing is, if you're not familiar with your abilities, mark abilities cannot transfer easily unless you use 1, an add support item, or 2, you use a receptor. Now, this is the third indirect way to do it. We can use the add ability transfer to get an ability from a different weapon onto something else, or a unit. However, would I want to do this in actuality? No. Hell no, I'm not going to do this because this is at a low slot and most weapons would be at a high slot. So you do not want to do this. But guess what? You can do this. It's going to have a menu that will pop up. It will tell you it will delete those other 4 abilities. Guess what? Pretty much it's the same dealio. It's going to tell you the cost. It's going to destroy that 8 slot dim weapon into a 0 slot dim weapon. You're keeping the dim weapon, but it's pretty much at a 0 slot now. And you're moving at least 4 of those 8 abilities onto your 15 star. And if you want to confirm, you want to move on, you want to accept this, then hit yes. But this is what the intent is. But because of this, there's ways around it where you can do something that, you know, isn't something you can normally do. Like, once again, move on mark ability. But because of this process as well, there's another thing that you can do. If you don't know what an add ability item is, an add support item, a pop item, note that I tend to call them pop items, make sure to watch the specific video on that. It should say add support items. There are different types of them. But here's the thing. When it comes to the special ability augment transfer, you can use an add ability item. I repeat, when you do a special ability transfer, you can use an add ability item. You might be saying, Morph, you gotta be kidding me. That's not supposed to happen, right? Yes, It's not supposed to happen. So what I'm going to do is pull out this add ability sentence power. And we're going to go back over here. Now I did go into my storage. And yes, that's a lot of pop items I have. If I do the regular method, when I do this sort of dealio, let's make this quick. Let me do this, and then hit confirm. You can use an add support item, an add special ability item. And you can see I can slap on a sentence power with whatever other ability I want to go for. This is through the normal method. Now, when I do this for special ability transfer, for some magical reason, if I were to use the previous example that we did with the 4 slot and with the 8 slot, I can select and add ability item. Note that this is not supposed to be a thing, but apparently it is. And it is a blessing in disguise. We are going to select the add ability sentence P times 1, and you can see that the ability now shows up on this list. By doing this, however, we can only now select 3 out of the 8 abilities over here. So if I want, Mark Regina, Yamato Factor, and maybe Slayer Phantom Time. I'm going to hit confirm. It's going to say it's going to delete 5 of these abilities now. If I hit yes, you can see that it's going to eat up all these things. Note that you are also eating up that add support item. It's still going to push the dim weapon from an 8 slot to a 0 slot. You can delete 5 of those abilities, and you get to move at least 3 of those abilities to the 15th star. We're not going to hit confirm, and if you decide to decline this, you will still have your add ability sentence power. You might be saying, Morph, so we could do this with SSA pop items, right? Add support items? Yes and no. You have to be conscious of what you are using and what the slot is. So if I try to use an S1, hopefully the weapon that I am toying around with can equip said slot. So if I do use this, guess what? It has to be with the right weapon, with the right slot. So if I decide to try to do this with a Nox, let's say we do the special ability transfer, we select on the Nox weapon, we select a dim weapon, you can see that it's not going to show that SSA supports add item. If I decide to go with this 15 star that can support the S1 ability though, I'm going to select this, select that dim, or at least the Nox, and you can see that it is showing up on my selection list. This is where I'm going to go into my opinion when it comes to this SSA and popping it during a special ability transfer. In all honesty, you do not want to do this because 1, popping an SSA through a normal fix session is not going to hurt you. It is actually easy to slap on an SSA, especially if you have a support add item. You want to establish that first on your intended piece. There's another reason to why you would want to use SSAs for a later point I'm going to explain in a few minutes. So for example, if I go over here and work with this 15 star again, it can support an S1 ability. So let's select these. You can see that I can pop up. And the moment I select this, it's already at 100%. It's going to be a S1 ability. And then I can select all these other abilities. Now do be careful, because if you wonder how I destroyed my Skydance Boon, I was not, well, in that video I was actually paying attention to it. And I just didn't select it properly. I did click, but didn't select the dang thing. But what could also happen is that if you click too many abilities, you might do that, and then you hit confirm, and then you realize, oh shoot, I destroyed my SSA. But you would want to use it through a normal fix, because even if you upslot, it is still at 100%. Secondly, the best method to actually deal with any sort of SSA, S-Class Special Ability Transfer, is this 4th option. There's a video that I made, an entire video that shows how to manipulate these S-Class abilities. Look for that in the description. You want to watch that, because this video is not going to cover it. When it comes to you doing special ability transfer, and this is just restating my opinion, do not use any SSA ability in this process. Do it in the add ability, or do it with the S-Class Special Ability Transfer, not with the special ability transfer. If you caught on to how this can be used to your advantage, good on you. If you have not, then let me demonstrate this. So we go back to SAT, special ability transfer. I'm going to be calling it SAT from here on out. When you do the SAT method, it will allow you to go a certain grade. If I go and work with, let's say, this 5 slot that have 5 abilities on it, and I want to use this Nox weapon and carry these 4 abilities, normally, if I do this, if I select that 5 slot Nox and select this 4 slot one and I don't use anything, I can only select 4. But because you can use and add ability item, guess what? You can actually get those 4 abilities from this Nox, use an add ability, and you can cover that 1 slot. So, once again, without the add ability item, if I select this Nox, you see that I select these 4 abilities and that is it. And I cannot fill up that slot 5. But because of a pop item, the add support item I can add along with it, it now becomes a 5 slot because I'm adding an ability to it. This is how you can +1 and slowly build your way up through an up slot and with your weapons and units. And as you can see, it's gonna make that 4 slot Nox into a 0 slot. It's gonna register all 4 of those abilities +1. It's gonna eat up these currencies though, and it's gonna destroy whatever abilities were on the 5 slot Nox originally. But this is how you can upgrade safely. And this is why it is important to note what an up slot penalty is and how this can help you ignore that, and you don't have to gamble to get to higher slots. I'm gonna stop you right there before you try anything. There's a lot more to it. It's not just that. Yes, you could technically +1 everything, and I'm gonna show the extreme and why you wouldn't want to do that. There's a lot of approaches to this method and how you can capitalize on it. How you can get a weapon from a 3 slot all the way up to an 8 slot, but that depends on the weapon and unit. There's a lot of things to note. I'm gonna dissect it for you guys within this video, but I'm not gonna do it in game. There are some previous examples in my affix session, some of my big moments where I made like my last Guardian Soul piece and all that. You'll see that again in this video, but for now I'm gonna use Affixing Assistant to display this. Affixing Assistant can show the ability transfer process compared to the simulator. I will have separate videos talking about this again, along with the simulator, and do a compare and contrast. But for now, let us focus on this. So to actually do this, you would want to try to make your final affix formula for your weapon and or unit. Now I'm going to bring this up again because this is important to note. But I am trying to go for an 8 slot, and as you can see, this has an S7 attack up, power 6, Mark Angra, grand power, mana rev, Ethifactus, sentence power, guardian soul. This thing is giving a whopping 370 S attack, 245 RNT, plus 26 PP, plus 120 HP, plus 140 dex, plus 100 RS and T. I can tell you straight up, this is not easy to work with, and hell, I would even go to the point of saying this is actually a pain in the butt and this is impossible to make as of this recording. Unless they add pop items for a bunch of different receptors, and you having an 8 slot unit with at least 2 of the 3 receptors, aka Soul Receptor and or Ethifactor and or Reverie Factor. Wait, no, excuse me. Factor Receptor, Soul Receptor, and or Reverie Receptor. These 3 cannot coexist nicely together because of a lot of things. I can point them out, but we're going to be here for, I don't know, a bit longer. I'm not going to do that. Not only that, some of these items as well are pop items only unless you have certain receptors and set abilities. So there's a lot of things you got to tackle with, and you can't make this naturally. But you can make this using the SAT, the special ability transfer. So yes, there's that option, but once again, I already explained that. We can be toying around with the blue button. Now, I'm going to break it down for you guys again and visually show you guys how you do this, but I already done it. So pretty much, once again, the thing that I demonstrated a few minutes ago where I use, let me make sure this is right. Let's say I want to carry these 4 abilities over here to this 5 slot, but I also want to use a pop item and get these 4 plus that pop item and then finalize it like that. That is what you're doing in the Affixing Assistant. You are pretty much going from a lower grade all the way up to a higher grade until you get it to the ideal weapon in our unit. In this case, it's the unit with the certain formula you want. So for this demonstration, yes, we are getting a Guardian Soul, and this is at a 1 slot. You just need to make a Guardian Soul at a 1 slot. You're gonna have to, I don't know if you want to use a bunch of boosters, or if you just want to gamble, or if you want to use protect. Goal is to try to get a Guardian Soul. Once you do that, you can then start doing the SAT method to get it all the way up to an 8 slot. And it is possible, but it will eat up a lot of resources. Not only in special ability transfer passes, now I get why they say transplant, but it's also going to eat up the add ability items. So to get from a 1 slot all the way up to an 8 slot, it will eat up 205 passes. How did it get that? Well, let us add. There's 5 here, 5 here, 5 here. So 3 times 5 is 15. Do 15 plus 15, it is 30. 30 plus 25, it is now 55. 55 plus 50 is 105. 105 plus 100 is 205. You're using 205 passes. Not only that, you're using 1 add ability power 6. Yeah, 1 add ability power 6, 1 Mark Angra, 1 Grand Power, 1 Mana Rev, 1 Ether Factor, 1 Sentence Power. And guess what? This is just for 1 unit piece. Times this all by 3. 205 times 3. 205 times 3. That is like 615 passes. If I did my math right. Let me make sure I did my math right by writing on this scratch sheet of paper in front of me. Yeah, it's 615. 615 passes in total. And guess what? You need 3 of each one of these pop items. And guess what? I did a video talking about those Mana Rev and Ether Factors. Yeah, you're gonna need those badges as well. So it's not just you know, just easily getting to an 8 slot. This thing eats up a lot. Now, once again, I did bring this up in one of my formula videos. If you want to see that upper right, well, I don't think the upper right hand corner can hold all of those videos. So look in the description for that. It talks about the Guardian Soul breakdown and alternative formulas. You can stop at certain thresholds if you don't have as many passes. But still, you are eating up a lot of resources because of this. Do you really want to do this? And note that this is not the heavy all-rounder Guardian Soul unit formula. It is lacking the Absolute Glare. It is lacking the Crack 5 Returner 5. There are no pop items for that. If I go over here and try to like transplant this and try to select it, I cannot select a Guardian Soul or a Crack 5. They might add it in the game later, but currently right now, as of this recording, it is impossible. So, this is why you gotta be careful with doing this sort of method. It is eating up a lot of resources. Do you really want to spend 205 per unit to get to an 8 slot when you can try to reduce half that cost? Now, I would advise those who would want to go to the next point to look in the description for that time skip. What I'm going to do is show you guys how I got all the way down to this Guardian Soul over here. So to do this process, you want to click on that plus icon and then you want to hit the transplant. Not affix, the transplant. When this happens, especially if you want to see that +1+1+1+1+1 method, pretty much you hit the confirm button. You don't do anything on this screen. If you do, then you gotta do something like this, and then it's gonna have a junk ability. You don't want that, no. In this case. So it does something like this. What does this mean? Anything in the blue means it is a SAT method. It is the special ability, special augment transfer. So it's showing you that you originally have an 8-slot unit piece, and then you have your fodder piece that have all these abilities. Once again, we get hit transplant. We get to keep on doing this for the right side. So we get hit transplant. Now, instead of just hitting confirm, we are actually toying around with this button here. It's underneath the add ability item. When we do that, we can select anything that has an orange box. As you can see, the only one that you cannot select is the orange. I said orange, so no, Guardian so. So anything that is highlighted in the orange outline is and can be an add ability item. So we get to do the power of 6 up there, we hit the minus. We want to do that because if you don't, then it's still at a 7 slot. We want to decrease that, especially if you want to see the example of +1+1+1. So we get to select that, and then we get to decrease it. Then after that, once again, this is pretty much showing what I already demonstrated in game. So this is a 6 slot and this is a 7 slot, and you're moving these abilities using a pop item to finalize it into a 7. So we get to keep on doing this until we get the Guardian Soul by itself, and then you can hit the affix button and then highlight that. So get it be. Oh wait, I did a mistake. I think it was over here, yeah. So you're supposed to select something and then minus, and then hit confirm. Do the same over here. And then last one. And then once you do that, you have a 1 slot. You can't do the transplant anymore. You do an affix instead. It's 2 method. You already made a Guardian Soul. You use Soul Receptor, or you make it by combining Astral, Ether, Mana, and Absolute. Going to show you that, confirm, and this is what I had in the beginning. Hopefully you caught on to the hint that I did in the very beginning of this. If not, then pretty much you need to have the certain weapon in our unit at that ideal slot number for your certain formula. So because I want something like this, I would want to get an 8 slot. And this is demonstrated through this blue box over here, the one that's at the very center. This one with the 8 slot with the 7 slot. Because this is pretty much illustrating your certain unit piece. And the best way to see me do this is through my one video where I started to 8 slot a lot of things, and that's where I also destroyed my Skydance Boom. Most likely I will cut away soon and just show that demonstration where I build everything to an 8 slot, and then I decided to do the SAT method to move a lot of the abilities that were on some junk pieces back onto these other pieces. You'll also notice a little trick that I did because of the SSA. Alright, that works. Let's go through this one quickly. Don't use anything. Boop, 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 boop. Yes! 8 slot! Because with all these failures, there will be a chance that you can actually push to that final motion, to the 8 slot that you are aiming for. So go ahead, eat up all this if need be, doo-doo. But with the final hurdle, I will succeed. You will allow this to succeed. You will not fuck me over because I'm just not in a good mood right now still. Come on, doo-doo. I mean, you and I are fucking bros! Yes! This is why you need to get your ideal unit, your ideal weapon, whatever your equipment is, to the certain slot number. So if I was working with this formula, guess what? I have to get this unit piece to an 8 slot. This is demonstrated within this blue box. An 8 slot with an SSA. Now, this is also crucial. That SSA is very, very, very important, and I'll show you why in a bit. You might have caught on to it if you saw that footage, and if you can figure it out yourself. But it is very important, once again, to get your ideal equipment to whatever slot number that you have planned. So if you got an 8 slot, you gotta push it to an 8 slot. If you got a 7 slot, push it to a 7 slot. 6 slot, push it to a 6 slot. Oh wait, excuse me, not that. Special ability transfer. I'm going to select the 6 slot. Now, they do not have to be at the same slot for it to work. So I'm going to select this 5 slot. Now, this is where it gets funky because it's going to ask this thing over here. I'm going to use a mana rev. So now I can transfer these 6 abilities, or 5 abilities originally, from my Liberate onto this rear piece over here. So it's going to be Guardian Soul. I'm going to most likely put Absolute Glare, then Mana Rev, Artifact, Mark, Angra, then a Crack 5 down there. I would love to put a Returner 5, but in all honesty, I do need to fix it normally to get it, to get a Returner 5, and that's going to be a pain in the butt. So I'm going to do that. It's going to eat up a good 25 passes. That's not actually bad, so I'm going to allow that to happen. Going to hit yes. So it's going to tell you that all the slots that you have on this piece is going to go bye-bye. I don't mind. Going to do that. Now you see that I have this. Now from here, this is where you would want to, one, have that ideal piece that you really want to finalize at that 8 slot. And now I can get this 6 slot to an 8 slot. So what I'm going to do now is select this 8 slot and then select that 6 slot. Now when I do this, oh wait, no, that's bad. Let me go back to that. So where are you? So I select that, and then I'm going to select this. And then I'm going to select a pop item. So what I can do now, you see it already registers that as class ability. That's good. Now what I can do now is finalize everything. Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Mana Rev, Artifactor. I'm going to have a Mark on Grid, Attack Boost, and then this. Now it is at an 8 slot. Gonna hit confirm, gonna hit yes. That's gonna make that 6 slot into a 0 slot. I'm fine with that. I'm good. It's gonna eat up 100 of my passes, but guess what? That is an 8 slot unit right there. It is pretty fucking godlike, and I didn't even need to gamble as much to get from that 5 slot all the way up to an 8 slot. This is how you want to upgrade to an 8 slot on your unit safely. So, most likely the footage will be playing again, but hopefully you noticed that I was able to skip numbers. I went from a 6 slot unit piece to an 8 slot. This isn't normal, but it's because of one glaring thing. Hopefully you guys caught on to it, and I did hint at it a few seconds ago. It's because of the SSA. Now obviously you can do +1, +1, +1, so a 6 slot to a 7 slot, 7 slot to an 8 slot. But because of SSAs, they can allow you to skip an X amount. For units in particular, they allow you to do another +1. So with what I decided to do is just have a plain unit piece that is below a 12-star rarity hold these 6 slot abilities, and then I move these 6 slot abilities onto something that is on a 13 star with an SSA, and I went from a 6 slot to an 8 slot. And I kind of hint at that, didn't I? It's because of the 13 star and the SSA. 13 star units are the only ones that can have an SSA ability, and these SSAs will allow you to do a +1 if you do not already have an SSA. We are back on the Japanese PSO2. Let us talk to Monica, select the third option, and let us demonstrate this point. So, let us use a standard 8 slot that is not a 13 star unit and it has no SSA. Now, this is going back to the very beginning of this video and some other things where I stated that if you do this method, anything that is on this piece, the ideal piece that you're trying to move stuff onto, it's gonna die. Now, the only exception is SSA. So, if I click on this 6 slot, use this add ability, and then try to do this, you see that there's one free slot. So, by using regular units by themselves, and not using an SSA, I'm only doing the +1, +1, +1. That is not ideal. And not only that, guess what? If you do the +1, +1, +1 method, you're eating up a lot of passes. So let us take this 8 slot now. Obviously, this has a bunch of good abilities. And yes, I am risking this again, but my fingers and my attention span is now highly fucking alerted. I'm not going to destroy this thing again. So, but let us take this. Let's pretend that there's not a bunch of good abilities on here. but it has an SSA and it is a 13 star. I can select this as the main piece, and then I'm gonna select this 6 slot. Now I'm gonna select the add ability as well, and guess what? The SSA is still there. That is the giant exclusion. This thing can withstand a lot of things. The only way you can destroy this is if you purposely and intentionally decide to go out of your way to destroy it. But this can survive upslot penalty, and this can survive the special ability transfer. And guess what? Now I could move all 6 of those abilities, plus the 1 ability that I got from the ability transfer, or excuse me, the add support item, and then the SSA. So I just went from a 6 slot unit piece to an 8 slot. I'm not going to hit confirm though. You might be wondering, Morph, should I work with a 13 star with a 13 star when doing this SAT method? I advise you not to, because it can get super confusing, especially if there are SSAs on both pieces. So, here's the thing. SSAs have their own function. It is the SSA transfer process one. It is this thing over here. You try to move an SSA through the special ability transfer, it's not going to register. It's not going to work. For example, if I take this 6 slot Novel and try to move these things, these abilities, this 3 slot to this 6 slot, it's not going to register the SSA. Even though they are the same type and it can hold the S8 ability, it is not going to work because guess what? There's that SSA transfer in the game, and it is to deal with SSAs. So when I do this, I'm only getting like 2 slot plus 1, and now it's just a 3 slot with these 3 abilities. That is it. I'm destroying the other 3 abilities here, and I'm forcing this from a 6 slot to a 3 slot. Not only that, another example of this is if I use this 8 slot and work with this 6 slot. Once again, they both have an SSA. Obviously, it's going to register this SSA because I'm moving these abilities to this thing. But it's not going to register this SSA over here. It's going to stay on this piece. So in actuality, you are dealing with a 5 slot unit piece. Not a 6 slot, a 5 slot. So if I select this, select that, guess what? I just plus 1 to the 5 abilities I can transfer over. So now it's 6 abilities I can transfer over. And I already got the SSA. That's another plus 1, but I didn't actually fill this up. As you can see, it's stuck at a 6 slot now. It's not at an 8 slot, and it was originally at an 8 slot. The goal is to move these abilities and have it stay at that 8 slot. It did not work because of that SSA. The only exception is if the unit piece in itself does not have an SSA, and this one has an SSA. So, 8 slot, use this leg piece, hit yes, use a pop item, it fills up all of that. So if you want to avoid any sort of complications, do not use a 13 star piece. Now you might be saying, Morph, do we really want to skip like this? Does it actually save? Yes, it does. Because if I take you to the Affixing Assistant, there is a way to display that through the Affixing Assistant. So you will also see a clip of me making my last Guardian piece that is this formula. Attack up 7, Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Mana Red, Ether Mark Ongra, Return to 5, and Crack 5. There's a bunch of other videos that break it down as well if you look in that video's description, showing you the process of how I made the fodder pieces, the stuff that I farmed. Actually, I don't think it showed that process, but yes, I made this last piece using the ability transfer process. You see me go from a 5 slot all the way up to that 8 slot. How did I go about it? Well, pretty much what I did was use, I think it was a Mark Ongra last. I did this, and as you can see, if you do that option in the very beginning, it decreases it. So it's not just a 7 slot. So to demonstrate it again, if it just hit that, it's going to register you doing, what is it, that 1 + 1 + 1 method. You don't want that. No, that's not the thing. That's not what we're talking about over here with the +2 thing. No. You have to. When you select this, you need to hit that minus in the beginning. The first Affixing Assistant formula that I didn't hit this minus. I didn't select anything. I just hit confirm. What you want to do is select something, minus, and then hit confirm, and that is a 6 slot right there. Then after that, I just realized that's the wrong one, but whatever. After that, I just did this again, and let me reset that because it was actually the mark that I didn't have. And then guess what? This is what I worked with. This is my Unit 3 Guardian Soul. This is the 5 slot that I made personally, and then I did the SAT method to get it from a 5 slot to a 6 slot, 6 slot to an 8 slot. And guess what? This cost is only 125 compared to this giant monster over here where it's just 205. And even then, if I made that 5 slot with the stuff over there and just went 6, 7, and 8, it's just gonna eat up another, what, 50 passes? Yeah, 50 passes. Because 6 slot to 7 slot, that is 50 right there. Pretty much you are saving a couple passes so you can put it towards something else, another unit piece, maybe a weapon. The thing is, you get to use 100 regardless if you are going for the 8 slot SAT method. You cannot avoid it. But at the very least, you can save a bit of passes so you don't need to overextend like this. This is just eating so much of it. Once again, 205 for this compared to 125. In a few seconds, you'll see the footage of me making that Unit 3 Guardian Soul, the last Guardian Soul piece that have a bunch of these abilities. And you'll see how many passes I have, and also just the process in itself. At a 6 slot. So what I'm going to do is go over here, select this piece, pop an item. I'm going to pop a mana rev. Actually, sorry about that. I actually chose that wrong. Make sure that you select it as the main piece. I had the 13 star as the main piece still. So let's go to the unit. Let me select that 6 slot. Let me select this. Let me pop a mark. Now, I am using Joyo for this because this RM piece does emphasize on HP, and why not? I'm going to emphasize a bit further on that. So I'm going to have Guardian Soul, I'm going to have an Ether Factor, I'm going to have a... Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Ether Factor, a Returner 5, Crack 5, well, let's put a mark within that. So as you can see, this unit piece is already at a 6 slot. It's going to destroy all these pieces. I'm going to make that sub card back into, 0 slot, but hey, look, I don't mind whatsoever. And when I do this in itself, it's just going to eat up 25 passes. Note that if you do decide to skip from a 5 slot to a 7 slot, you are using 50 passes. And if you use 50 passes, and then you go from a 7 slot to an 8 slot, you're using 150 passes in total. Me doing this process over here, I'm saving 25 passes. So I'm going to hit yes, make sure that I got everything. Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Ether Factor, Mark, Joyo, Returner 5, Crack 5. Anyways, go back to here, go to this unit tab, select this thing over here, select this. Let me make sure I selected it properly. Do that, do this. Oh, no, there was a mistake there. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this. Once again, Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Mana Rev, Ether Factor, Mark, Joyo, Returner 5, Crack 5. Yes. 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 We are done. This is where we get into the weapon section. I'll break down some things and examples, capitalize on the SSAs and how stupidly broken they are. But let me give you guys my brutal honest opinion. Now I can go into a whole spiel about this. I might make a separate video talking about it. But to dumb it down, and this is my brutal honest opinion, you should naturally get stuff to an 8, especially if it has multiple SSA and it's from Zig. The only exception would be the Revelate because it is a pain in the butt to work with because it only has 2 SSAs. But for the Atlas EX, the Light, the Trailblazer, the Ophistia, I highly doubt people use the Ophistia austere weapons now. Still Puros, the Fluxio, the Lightweaver, the Eye weapon. All of those weapon series you would want to try to push to an 8 slot naturally because guess what? They have SSAs and these things can ignore the upslot penalty. On the screen, you can see that 4 of these are automatically at 100. The other 4 aren't, but you can make that a better percent. Obviously, my rule of thumb is if you are not at 100%, you are still gambling. But at the very least, you would want to gamble smart, or try to gamble as high as you can, if possible. So if I just use a 40%, 45% with no boost week, it's at a 75%. That is not favorable at all. You have a 25% chance to fail. At a 15%, that is now 90%. That's a bit better. Once again, it's not at 100, but I'll take it. Let's see if this works. Due to it, it works. So you want to play smart. You want to affix smart. But this is entirely up to you. You can use this method to slowly get to an 8 slot, 7 slot, 6 slot, what have you. I would say don't do that, especially if you want to try to get higher slot numbers, especially 7 slot, 8 slot, because you will need those passes and you need some of those add abilities for those units. But that is entirely up to you. You will have to take it as you will. Do whatever you would want to do. Those are your resources. I'm giving you guys my 2 cents and my, once again, brutal and honest opinion. Most of the weapons I ever worked with, I push naturally to an 8 slot and I worked at them at an 8 slot. There's one grand exception, and I'll show you that footage and that weapon in a bit. But I will demonstrate it in the Affixing Assistant. Now, obviously, these SSAs aren't good with each other, and this is simulating the Light Weaver weapon series. It might be named something else over there in Global, but this has 5 SSAs, and this has 3 abilities. Now, people will say otherwise. I am going to say the only exception to use the SAT method is if you have a Guardian Soul, and you're working with it at a low grade. Now, there are 8 slot protects, and a lot of people would say gamble and try to make Guardian Soul at that 8 slot. The problem I have with that is that, one, if it fails, it fails. It does eat up a lot of resources, so if you decide to buy it on the market, it can be costly because it is an 8 slot Guardian Soul. You need resources that make up that 8 slot Guardian Soul. So you will need Astral Soul materials, you need the Mana Rev, the Ether Factor, and then the Absolute Glare. Astral Soul isn't as bad because it's at SAF. Profound weapons aren't as bad as well, so you can try to eventually make Mana Rev. The 2 big issues is Ether Factor and Glares. Glares are still relevant and they will still be important, and they will be very costly until there's an easy way to make Absolute Glare. So, I did not like that. I did not want to spend as much, so I decided to do the opposite sort of approach. And I will demonstrate it with this. So, pretty much this is what I did. You make that Light Weaver go to an 8 slot. You make sure it has 5 SSAs. You don't really care about the other 3 abilities. Make sure it's at an 8 slot. Then you work with a fodder piece that is at a 3 slot. Have whatever abilities you want. If I really want to though, I could replace these certain abilities. So instead of Guardian Soul, Phrase Decay, Mana Rev, what I could then do is, instead of Mana Rev, I could put a grand ability in there instead. It depends on what I'm doing. Now, for the certain formula that I did in the video, I went Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Ether Factor. So let me rework this. So let me click on this instead of Mana. Let us go with like Grand Shoot, for example. So I transplant that. I can do this minus that. Do that. Actually, no, hold up. Yeah, I could do something like this. So I can have a 2 slot Guardian Soul, Phrase Decay, then pop an item over here when transferring it to that 8 slot, and then I have all 3 of them. I could also, let's say I don't do anything, hit confirm. What I can also do is transplant this one since it's already at a low grade. I could do something like this. I'll have this in the description below as well. Note that once again, these SSAs aren't good with each other. Do not try to do something like this. I just decided to shove random SSAs onto this to prove my example. But yeah, you can do something like that as well, where you affix this properly, which is not going to be as bad. Going to do something like that. Then you gamble with, you use protects if you want. 4 slot protects to make sure that Guardian Soul, or the materials you did, stays along with that Phrase Decay. Shouldn't be bad if it's really low like this. Then what you can then do, well, you're going to have to tamper around with these pieces actually. I would rather have this main piece be the, what is it? Actually, no, that's right. That's correct. Never mind. Actually, no. That Mana Rev could be on this main fodder piece instead. Absolute Glare can be its fodder 1. So, I do that, do an add ability transfer here, just get take up 5 passes, get a grand shoot on there, and then finalize it, go to here. It's gonna be 100 passes. Now, if I did the previous one, it's only 100 passes, and I do add ability and get that. Just depends on how you want to do it. But this is the only exception. This is, in my book, is the only exception to why you would want to do it at a low grade, and then do the SAT ability to get it to an 8 slot, because you really don't want to try to get 8 slot protect and use that for a weapon and or unit. It's just going to be a pain in the butt, because 8 slots are also expensive because they're behind a paywall. They can only be obtained through AC scratches, and do you really want to gamble to try to get an 8 slot protect just so you can gamble it again to try to keep a guardian slot at an 8 slot? No. Use a 4 slot protect instead. Use the SAT method to get that guardian soul all the way up to that 8 slot. But that is my logic and reason behind it. Once again, some people would say otherwise and say gamble, especially if you farm for this stuff, which is why I tell some people if they want to go for it, you might want to farm for it. Maybe at lower grades, high grades, it depends on their approach. So I can also demonstrate this again over here. So this is just to emphasize on if you already got stuff on something. So if you have, what is it? This light weaver, for example, with 5 SSAs and then 3 random abilities, you could do what I pretty much did in the Affixing Assistant. So use something like that, use this, and then guess what? Boom. Easy 8 slot right there. Can do another one where it's like, that, and then use a 3 slot. So this thing over here with all these abilities, I could ignore these, don't pop anything, do this, and then boom, you're good. Thinking about it, when I made that certain footage and weapon, did they even have that add ability item? No, I think I used most of the add ability items, especially the artifact on my unit. So, and I don't remember if at that time they had the add ability as well. You'll see a visual representation of me finalizing something and creating the certain light weaver that I have, the katana one that's sitting in my storage. This 8 slot, red petal flash, Rainbow's Intent, Nature Melodies 2, Vampiric Strike, Antithesis Cultivation with Guardian Soul, Absolute Glare, Artifactor, using the SAT method. And time for me to show you guys how to use this special ability transfer. Now, personally, I would not do it for a weapon, but for Guardian Soul, I'll do it, especially with these endgame affixes that I have. So I'm going to select this as the main piece, and then I'm going to transfer these abilities onto it. It's going to select all those 5 S-Class abilities I already have. Going to transfer all these glorious abilities too. Going to do this. It's going to eat up 100 passes. I have 221. I don't mind. We're done. We are done with this. Guardian, Absolute, Ether. That concludes this video. I was very thorough with this one. This is why it's called 202, and this is why it's renamed, or it is named, Special Augment Ability Transfer again. Hopefully this shows you guys how this process is done and how you can use this to your advantage. If you have any question, comment, concerns, put it down below. If you have questions about a very specific thing that I mentioned in the video, put down the timestamp and then I'll address those questions. If you want actual help, guidance, advice in terms of augmenting and fixing, or at least saving a good chunk of your resources or maybe your meseta, so you can go for something decent instead of like a Guardian Soul, going for 8 slots, and you want to talk to me, then you can DM me. I do have a Discord server as well. Don't know if the link below is working. If it doesn't, let me know. But yeah, you don't want to spend as much, affix smart, farm smart, and obviously I already stated my opinions about how you would want to use this method more on the units than the weapons. But these are your materials, these are your resources. Do how you play, how you want to play it, do what you want to do what you think is going to help you in the long run. You don't need to have the best abilities to play PSO2. You can have mediocre ones. I was able to use standard gear, Novo, regular pre-affixed stuff to do ultra hard stuff. So you don't need the best abilities to run PSO2, especially since NGS is around the corner. Anyways, that is it. Once again, question, comment, concerns, put it down below. I'm done. Peace.